Hopefully some good ones. Well,
So he was very good with me because when they were doing the Russia hoax, they said I did something with him on a phone call, and basically I congratulated him on his winning the presidency,
right.
and said some other things which were turned out to be perfect, better than perfect. If he sees any corruption, please report it to the Attorney General of the United States, which we have an agreement with the country. We have actually a signed contract with them, a very important one, that because Ukraine has always been known as very corrupt. I don't know if you know that. It has been a very corrupt country. I think the people are great, but it's been very corrupt. And I said, if you find any corruption in the country, you should report it immediately to the Attorney General. I did say that. And it was a very good thing to say. It turned out I was 100% right in saying it. So they made up a phone call, but fortunately, the phone was essentially taped. The call was essentially taped. I didn't know this, but a lot of times when you're talking foreign leaders, they have tapes, or they have stenographers. And we had two professional, really great military stenographers. So every word. So when they said I did these things, I said, no, I didn't. And then I said, was that taped, or did they have the stenographers? The answer was yes. And they got all the way down the line to impeach me. They wanted to impeach me over this phone call, a single phone call. And I knew that I had them because I had the tape or the stenographers, everything, perfect. Every word was said. And then they did the impeachment. And just before that, because I remember Nancy Pelosi was crazy, we can't impeach him. Look at what the phone call was. She saw the phone call.
Yeah.
And then they decided, well, let's do it anyway. Can you believe how bad these people are?
Horrible.
Let's do it anyway, because they had the phone call.
Yeah.
That's where Tim Scott, a great guy from senator from South Carolina, he said, wait a minute, I've just read the phone call. That phone call was, he was the first one to speak up. Tim Scott of South Carolina. Then Republican senators spoke up. And they were great. I mean, there was great, of course, the only one was Mitt Romney, real stiff. And he couldn't get elected dog catcher right now. But and he actually voted. He actually only took a half a vote away, but everybody else voted for me 100% unanimous with the Republicans.
Big Trump.
And it was fine. But what they did was they made up a call, and then when they found out that I had it essentially on tape, they looked really bad, and they had a decision to make. Do they pull it? And she said, no, we shouldn't be doing this, but let's go ahead with it anyway. I did nothing wrong. So you have to be careful. So let me just say about him. So when they called him and they asked him, did President Trump say anything that was inappropriate or wrong? He said, absolutely not. It was a very nice phone call. There was nothing unusual about it at all. And he could have grandstanded. He could have said, well, and he didn't say that. So I respect him. I think that I will be able to make a deal with him and Vladimir Putin very quickly.
That's great.
Even though it would have been a lot
Believe
easier
that.
before this war started, and you wouldn't have 500,000 people, or maybe much more than that. I think you're going to find that the number of people dead is far greater than what they're saying. That's a really nasty thing going on over there. But I think I will be able to get him and Putin together, and we'll get it ended. It would have never started if I were president. We had no chance of starting. I knew Putin very well, know him very well, and it was the apple of his eye. Ukraine was the apple of his eye. He did love it. He did want it, but he knew he couldn't do it. He wouldn't. He would not. He knew he could not do it. He would have never done it if I was president. And now when you look at all of the death and all of the destruction, even of their culture, because those cities are wiped to the ground. Most of the cities.
Horrible.
Outside of Kiev, most of those cities are wiped down to the ground. And it's so sad. And when those buildings come down, there are plenty of people in there. People think those buildings don't have people. They have a lot of people in those buildings that don't want to leave. And those buildings come down. They're big buildings, big, heavy buildings, and they come down. And the people are crushed. Instantly, they're crushed.
Horrible.
Missiles hit them. So I'll get it. But it could have been if the election weren't rigged, let me tell you something. If the election weren't rigged, we wouldn't have had Ukraine and Russia. We wouldn't have had the attack on Israel. And Israel would right now not be fighting. There would be no problem. And we wouldn't have had that horrible embarrassment of Afghanistan, where we gave them $85 billion worth of equipment, and we lost
shit was
13
crazy.
soldiers, many injured, many bad. Nobody talks about the ones that don't have arms and legs and their faces wiped out. But none of that would have happened, and inflation wouldn't have happened, because inflation was all started by their stupid energy policy.
Yeah.
These people are incompetent. And I tell you what, I worry about the next 5 months, even after the election. You know, they're there for 2 months after the election. I worry that bad things can happen in 5 months, because
Wow.
these people that are there and they're running our country are grossly incompetent.
Gotcha. I wanted to touch base real quick on the inflation thing. So, you know I saw you when you went to go speak in Nashville. You talked about crypto. You said that crypto can
Nah,
help,
facts.
right?
Biden getting bitched
You
around by
mentioned
other
it's, you know,
countries.
somewhat like gold. Do you
Oh,
think
talking about
that,
crypto.
if when you get back in office, you would still fully support crypto? And I just saw that the U.S. government, ever since you spoke about it, they're selling crypto. They're selling it. So what would you do if you were in office with crypto?
It's something they shouldn't be doing, because they should be trying to build it. So if we don't do it, China's doing it, other places are doing it, and they're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's a very
What's
modern
good, Nash? I know you
currency.
changed your
It's a very
name.
modern form. And I know a lot of very good people that are really into that world and into that market. They're smart, they're good people, and they think it's going to be very beneficial. And remember this, though, it's very important. It's like AI. Do you love it? Not like it? If we don't do it, China's going to do it, or
course.
other people are
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
And we can't be left behind. And crypto is right in that sphere. And it is a form of currency. And again, China's already doing it. But if we don't do it, they're going to do it. AI is something that's really at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And there are pros and cons to everything. But China is trying to do everything.
Yeah.
And we've got to beat them to the punch.
I would love to see you and Elon, get together.
Are
and
you
talk
speaking
about that
facts?
together. I think
I'm
it's
doing
really
good. What
important
about you?
because, Elon with what he's doing, and then obviously you guys could really come together, maybe try to find some solutions for AI, because it is getting out of hand. You see a bunch of fake stuff. It's really getting crazy.
It's, one thing about AI that's interesting is, and who would believe this, to really be at the top of it and to dominate, because China's very much into the artificial intelligence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Even the name is sort of a weird name, because artificial intelligence sounds like, it's not really a very good name when you think about it. It's
No, it's not.
artificial.
Yeah.
It says like fake intelligence, right? But regardless, so you need massive amounts of electricity to be able to compete. Did you know that? Electricity.
Yeah.
And if you don't build twice the amount of electricity that the country currently has, now think of that number. You need more electricity than the country has for everything, times 2. Now think. So nobody's going to
pointless.
be able to get that done but me. I'm the only one, because you're going to have to build power plants at every plant. You're going
Yeah.
to have a power plant for
Yeah.
every plant. It's all electricity based. It's amazing. You need massive amounts of electricity. In the meantime, they built 8 chargers in the Middle West for cars, because we shouldn't have, obviously, all electric. They have this electric car mandate, and they don't go far. They cost a lot. They're going to be made in China. And under Biden, he wants everybody to drive an electric car. No more gas-propelled cars, no more hybrids, no more anything. Think of it, how crazy. And you can drive a car from here to Los Angeles on a tank of gas. Same thing with trucks. They want trucks to go electric. They'd have to make 6 stops to get to Los Angeles. With diesel, they don't have to make any stops, and they have left over. And the truck gets lighter as you go. One of the problems with that
You
is the
speaking
weight.
facts, though.
The weight of the batteries is so heavy. It's 2.5 times heavier than a truck without, with diesel. And you would have to rebuild all of your bridges all throughout the
Big
country.
RX.
And I asked, the trucking industry supports me because of this. I mean, they probably like me, but they support me because of this, because they're not going to have an industry. I said, when you explain that you're going to have to rebuild all of your bridges in the country, when you explain that to the government officials that come and harass you, don't they say, oh, I see, well, then it doesn't work. Just that one thing, it doesn't work. When you explain to them that you have to stop 6 times for 4 hours a stop, and you're talking about a supply chain problem, right? But I said, when you explain that to people, just tell me, do they say, oh, then we can't really do it? It makes sense. We can't do it.
Of course, yeah.
It's all right. You could have a child go into a meeting, and within 1 minute or 2 minutes, they would convince you that it doesn't work. Maybe sometime, but I think it's essentially never going to work. In my opinion, it'll never work, because you're always going to have a weight problem. You're always going to have, it's never going to be the same kind of a thing where you can drive for 2 days without stopping. It's just not going to happen that way. And I said, what do they say when you go in and explain this? They don't care. They say, we don't care. We want you to go electric. And one gentleman, the biggest guy in the business, he said to me, all my life I've been buying trucks. 50 years I've been buying trucks. And every year they got better, bigger, stronger, more beautiful. Every year for 50 years they became more efficient, more fuel efficient, better pollution control, everything. And if they make us do that, we'll go back 50 years, more than that. He said a truck 50 years ago would have been better than what they're making us use right now. And I
That's
say, when
crazy.
you explain that, do they do anything? They sit there, they look, and they say, we don't care. That's our mandate. You have to go all electric. These people are going to destroy our country. We can't let them do it.
Horrible, horrible. Mr. President, I know you're very busy. It's already 2:15.